I can get apples at the local grocer. All right. There are no supply chain issues with apples, believe it or not. No problem. I'll get my own apple. Apple number 4 worst Halloween trick-or-treat handout. What's your number 4, Sundance?
Glad to know that the supply chain issue across the country.
It doesn't extend to produce like that. Mass-produced produce. I've got apples growing in my back door. And we are live. Let's go. This is the Dos Padres podcast. I'm Major J. That's a Sundance kid. He's here covering all things in the Boston sports scene with plenty of other fun and antics mixed in along the way. And yet another jam-packed show for you folks this week. We've unfortunately got to talk about a little bit about the Red Sox, knocked out of the LCS by the Astros. Not going to spend too much time on that. We have plenty of time in the offseason to talk about the Sox. We are, however, going to be pulling in a special guest this week, Sundance. We're welcoming Matt Cannata, founder and CEO of ProFootballNetwork.com. He's going to be joining us for a little bit, talk a little football, little Miami Dolphins, one of our Patriots' arch rivals in the division. Then we'll move on. We'll talk about the Pats, their lambasting of the Jets last week. Good to see. Rolling right into a tough matchup with the Chargers in LA this weekend. We've got another Fantasy 5 segment, another round of NFL picks, one of our favorites. And then we are doubling down on the Halloween theme from last week. This week we're going into another top 5, this time our worst trick-or-treating handouts. That should be a fun one. Sundance, how you feeling? And as always, what you sipping on tonight?
All right, so sipping on the libation of our forefathers, some good old-fashioned tea. The wonderful New England seasonal allergies / cold is on the heels right now. So let's try to fend that off with some good old-fashioned hot tea. I am feeling pretty good. Certainly disappointed.
The T would say otherwise. You're feeling okay?
That's why I led off with otherwise. I'm feeling pretty good. Right. It was disappointing to see our Sox knocked out of contention. As you indicated, we've got plenty of time to dive into the Sox offseason, and there will be a lot there to go into. Yeah. I was pretty stoked to see that Coach Belichick heeded my expectations last week and dropped a 50 burger on the NYJ.
Not the 30, not the 30 you wanted. He said, you know what, Sundance, I'm going to see your 30. I'm going to raise you another 20.
Yep. Big game, huge game for the Pats. They needed it. Our Celtics, they've won a couple of games. They've lost a few. So, we'll touch on them lightly and certainly start to work them in.
Right.
And I got to get up on my Bruins knowledge. I know we won't go too much into depth on Bruins coverage here. We'll work them in where we can. Otherwise, I'm feeling pretty good. The Sox were an underdog going into the season. They showed well. And the Patriots proved last week that they're not dead. What say you, Major J?
Oh, well, since you ask, I am sipping on, first off, some water, not Aquafina, since we still have not established that partnership yet. Still waiting on that. As well as a hard smoothie.
Oh.
The name escapes me at the moment. Eagle something from Wisconsin. It is mango pina colada. It's essentially like a malt beverage, but flavored like a smoothie. Yeah, it's actually sour but delicious.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I've been dabbling these a little bit lately, and they're tasty. They're tasty. Yeah, but like you just said, Sox disappointing. Obviously you're blowing, but essentially had a 2-1 lead in that series. Bats were on fire. Then the last 3 games, they went absolutely silent, which you could just see just an unfortunate That, it's an unfortunate way things go in baseball. Sometimes you're hot, then you're not. It's unfortunate, but all in all, season was a success. As we said earlier, we're not going to be touching too much on that tonight. We'll be delving into an off-season recap in the future, as well as kind of a hot stove off-season primer as well. As well as we'll be getting some Celtics coverage in as we move into the baseball off-season. Celtics have started off a little up and down. Won't get too much into it here, but I'm already feeling shades of anger like I have seasons past in terms of just the up and down nature and not knowing what to expect of this team.
Hey, get in line on that one. You got to get in line behind Coach Udoka, who doesn't mind putting it out there when the team falls flat. I do like that about this Celtics coach. I did not know much about him coming into this season. No. Boy, he is direct. I mean, he is a Celtics beat writer's dream because
they're going to have fun with him.
Yeah, when the Celtics do not show up, he is not going to sugarcoat it. I'll tell you what I'm waiting for is when he starts calling guys out directly, and he doesn't seem like the type of coach to pull any punches at any point. So this is going to be a fun Celtics season.
Yeah, agree. This team, he flat out, they came out and laid an egg in their home opener last Friday against Toronto, losing by about 30, and flat out said they got punked, which I think is fantastic. He flat out said, we got punked on our own floor. Yeah. I mean, you really couldn't put it any better. And he was right. When you lose by 30 to what's regarded as not a good Toronto team at home, you got punked. I mean, I get it. It's the beginning of the season. Things have to gel. They've got parts, etc. Overall, very excited about the Tatum, Jaylen Brown duo. I do think this is a year the two of them really elevate themselves up to being talked about as one of the top duos in the league. But again, we can hash it out. Bruins also had a decent start. They're 3-2. A bit of a come to Jesus moment last night, losing to undefeated Florida. They're going to have I think there's going to be some goaltending problems potentially throughout the season, which we'll be talking about. That's a bit of a primer as well for a future Dr. Geary spot topic, is talking about Tuukka Rask, his hip surgery, what that looks like in terms of potentially him coming back later in the season should he decide to play. But enough of that. We will actually now move on. We are going to be bringing on Mr. Matt Cannata, founder and CEO of ProFootballNetwork.com. Matt, how are you, sir? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
All right. So, yeah, just to start, if you want to just introduce yourself, give a little background on how Pro Football Network came to be, etc.
For sure. Yeah, it's a long story.
Okay.
I won't go total, but basically,
the abridged version is fine.
The genesis. It's funny you say bridge because it involves a bridge. But basically, the genesis of it is because the Dolphins are so terrible, and for such a long time, I had run my own Dolphins fan site and did Dolphins podcast for SB Nation for several years. And me and my co-host were at a game, Bengals versus Dolphins, and the Dolphins were up the entire game until the fourth quarter, and we went to Cincinnati for the game, so it's even worse because it's an away game. Dolphins totally collapsed, and this was the end of the Ryan Tannehill and Adam Gase era in Miami from that point forward. And we're sitting in the parking lot after the game. We're like, why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we cover this team that is just so terrible year after year? And just be miserable about it because we have to cover them every single day. And so stupid us says, well, let's cover all 32 teams, right? Why not? Let's see if 31 other fan bases are as toxic as the Dolphins. And one thing led to another. We started it, and I almost quit 6 weeks into it. Obviously, at that time, nobody was getting paid. Nobody was doing anything. Right. Me and the guy who started it, and then the other guy who joined in with us. We were editing, 6-7 articles a night. We're like, what are we doing? And I said to them, listen, let's just close up shop. What are we doing? He goes, no, we're not. And I'm glad he said that because today we have 20 full-time staff here at Pro Football Network. We have 17 in the United States, 2 in the UK, 1 in Canada. And, we're just a booming company right now, averaging over 5 million users a month that come to our website, and we're expanding to different multimedia platforms. And so the growth we've seen has been explosive. And obviously that's a really short history of how we've come to be. But that's how it started as a Dolphins fan. And I'm still a little bit of a Dolphins fan, but I have to be covering 32 teams. It's a little more like work these days on Sundays and so forth. And it takes the fandom out of you because you have to just focus on the entire league and just keep moving on with your day.
I'd imagine the Adam Gase experience would take some of the fandom out of you.
Adam Gase.
That's tough to get back.
The Adam Gase, the Joe Philbin, the Cam Cameron.
Just the list goes on and on.
It doesn't stop.
So, it's funny you mentioned as far as the website kind of blowing up. I did notice, admittedly, I didn't know this until recently. Like, you even have, like, I know you have Tony Pauline as far as contributing with the college football stuff. Yeah. I noticed the Trey Wingo, like that's some legit names there you've got. Like, how did you go about incorporating those guys kind of into the fold?
Yeah, no, Tony, God bless him. He was the first guy to take a chance on us. And I had kind of met him virtually through doing the podcast for the Dolphins. He had been on the podcast a few times, and it was always a big name in the industry. I'm like, I'm just going to shoot my shot one day and try to get him on the Dolphins podcast. And he was like, yeah, sure, why not? So we had him on, gave us a lot of good information. And then when I started the site, we're like, we need a bigger name. We need to do something to start somewhere. Like, let's start with the draft. And so I reached out to Tony and said, hey, Tony, you remember me and this and that? And he says, yeah, of course I remember you. One thing led to another, and we signed a contract. It's funny because not like we're paying him a ton of money at the time, but we were paying him a decent amount of money. And the 5 owners in the company, me and the 4 others who started this thing, we had no money to our names, right? We all put in like $1,000 each. So we had like $5,000 to start the site. We signed Tony to a contract. Obviously, he's making more than $5,000 off of us. And he's due to start in September, and I think we signed a deal like in April or May. We had no idea what we were doing. This was early 2019. And
you signed a contract too, so you're like, this really needs to work out.
We're like, we have no idea how we're going to pay this guy, but worst comes to worst, we'll just pay him ourselves and then call it a day after a year. But it was funny because he was scheduled to start in 2 weeks in September, and it's mid-August. I'm like, guys, we have to do something. And I'm like, let's throw ads up on the site. So like go through Google Ads, we're throwing up ads on the site. No idea what we're doing, just like throwing them anywhere and here and there. And it's crazy. And because it was September, right? Draft season wasn't big yet. And so he's doing these articles and like, it's not getting a ton of traction. We're like, oh shit, did we make a mistake here? And then he broke this big story with Laramie Tunsil, right? And that kind of put us on the map with him. And every single media outlet, Pro Football Talk called us out, the big names, and we were so young at the time. And we were breaking this story. And I remember the Dolphins called us out as well indirectly through the Miami Herald. And they said, they denied all the reports. Then, of course, everyone came and attacked us and said,
the last thing you need in the infancy of the site. Yeah.
I have a story. I don't know how long I have on this podcast, but I have a story I want to get
We'll make time for you.
As long as you want.
Yeah.
So we broke the story first on Twitter. And I remember I was at the bar with my cousins. It was like 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night. And I'm out. He calls me up. He says, Matt, you need to call me. And I call him up on his phone. He's like, listen, here's what I'm hearing. We need to report this, but I can't put my name on it just yet. So I tweeted out from the PFN account. We have like 3,000, 4,000 followers at this time. Nothing big. It's September, August 2019. And, I tweeted out. Things start blowing up. He calls me again. And he says, man, then he's starting to email me. And I'm like, I just need to call this guy or text this guy and just figure out something. So I text him. And of course I get the thing back. This number is a landline. So then I'm thinking like, who am I talking to right now? Does not have a cell phone. Around. Who has a landline, right? And so, I'm trying to let this loud bar with music blaring, and I'm trying to break this story on Pro Football Network. My cousins are yelling at me because I'm on my phone the entire night and not paying attention to them or doing anything. Yeah. I'm like, listen, guys, just chill. And so we break that, and then we break it. We break some more information the next day, and then when a few days go by, we break some more information. And then it's a Friday. It's a Friday night, and a reporter from the Dolphins, not the Dolphins organization, but a beat reporter down in Miami, someone who I've had interactions with in the past, messages me and says, listen, we heard the same thing about Laramie Tunsil, but we didn't report it because it was so crazy.
Right.
If Tony puts his name on this, we will report it in our paper tomorrow morning, which was Saturday morning.
Legitimizes it, yeah.
Right. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. So I go to Tony and say, hey, and Tony had a relationship with this guy too. And I said, Tony, such and such says, if you put your name on it, they're going to put the story in the paper. They're going to credit us, and they're going to say this is true. It's a huge paper down in Miami.
Yep.
And so Tony's like, all right, let's do it. So we get back to the guy. We're like, listen, we're going to put out a tweet. We're going to put out a story tonight that puts Tony's name on this report. And he says, great, let's do it. And so we put it out, and everything, I think everything's fine. And I remember to this day, I'm sitting on my deck at home, and I'm just refreshing this newspaper page to see when the story comes out. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. It comes up. I click on it, and the very first paragraph, it's like the Miami Dolphins have released a statement saying that they're not actively trading Laramie Tunsil. He's not on the trade block, and this report is false. And I literally just like pushed something across the table, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" Yeah. And then buried down lower in the article was like one line about Pro Football Network reporting this, but the Dolphins are saying this.
Right.
And
how did Tony react to that once?
Tony was pissed. And I go to the guy, I'm like,
he put his neck out on that, and
I go, what the hell? And he goes, hey, the Dolphins reached out to us this morning, and we have to put it in. I'm like, no, you didn't. You didn't have to put it in. And then a week goes by, and this whole week, everyone's just blasting us. Once the Dolphins put out the statement, everyone's like, what a joke you are. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You're trying to make up these stories for clout, for clicks, and so forth. And then the next Saturday, we're ready to start my fantasy draft in my cousin's house again. And then I get the message on my phone. Laramie Tunsil's been traded to the Texans, and I'm like,
yeah. And you like retweet, you immediately start blasting.
I put the Kermit the Frog drink meme on my Twitter account. But that's the moment. That's the moment actually where my fandom started to leave for the Dolphins, because at that point it was, you know what? It's a stupid move to trade him, but for the sake of my company, I hope it happens, because that gives us legitimacy.
Yeah, and to say you took it personally, that whole chain of events, you start taking it more personally, and then it's hard to separate at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Tony's been fantastic. He obviously does the draft stuff.
Yeah,
he's such a good insider. We're actually tomorrow, I think we're dropping a huge story on the Jets. It's a little bit of it's an explosive one, I think. There's a lot of dysfunction going on in that locker room. We're going to kind of open the doors on it.
No, you don't say.
Yeah.
Imagine that, the Jets dysfunction.
He's talked to 8 to 10 people within the organization, talked to a few players. And so there's some things going on there that he's just tidying up. So we're hoping to release that tomorrow. All right, well, but he's great with inside information. He's great with the draft. And then Trey Wingo, we saw, I think it was on like Thanksgiving night one night, that he wasn't being renewed by ESPN.
Right.
Yeah. I go to my other partner. I'm like, I'm not texting, but tweet at him, see what he says. And we tweeted like, hey, Trey, come to PFN. Obviously not expecting a damn thing in the world. And then my partner, Bray, he's like, well, who's his agent? And we found his agent, and we tweeted at his agent, hey, Jim, have Trey come to PFN. And then like literally the next morning, there's a DM from Jim in our inbox. And he's like, I appreciate you guys reaching out. Right. But I don't see any reason why Trey would want to join you guys, right? But he goes, we'll take the call out of courtesy.
Sure.
We'll take a courtesy call. You never know.
Respect it. Yeah.
So we did the call. We did a few calls with Jim, his agent, and then I guess they were impressed. And then we kind of
the fact that they even took the calls, even despite that they still opened the calls.
And then we took a call with Trey. We took a call with Trey like 2 months later. The negotiations started Thanksgiving. They wrapped up probably in March. Beginning of March, and then those were grueling negotiations. Obviously, he's working with a professional agent, and we're just working by ourselves. But we ended up bringing in a lawyer to help us along with that, and Trey's been good. Trey brings a lot of credibility. The names bring a lot of credibility.
Absolutely,
but we also have a lot of people behind the scenes who work full time that just keep the engine running. Yeah,
man, that's crazy. All right. Appreciate the background there, Matt. We're going to get into some. Sundance and I have talked about this. We want to get into some Miami Dolphins talk here. One of the Pats rivals, obviously in the AFC East. Sundance, what do you got for Matt here?
Matt, we're approaching dumpster fire level with the Dolphins. What in your estimation, what you're hearing, even from a little sliver of your fandom, from what you've seen, what's the number one issue plaguing the Dolphins right now?
It's a lot, right? It's a GM who's really messed up quite a bit. It's a GM who has not taken advantage of all the picks that he's gotten. I think he's built the team the right way. I think fans agree that he's tried to build the team the right way. He's just picked the wrong players. right? He's built from the trenches. He's tried to revamp the offensive line, but there's just been too many questionable picks there and too many mistakes. I think you have a GM and a head coach who aren't seeing eye to eye right now, and I think there's some dysfunction there. You have the pursuit of Deshaun Watson. You have half the people in the organization, from what we've reported, from what Tony Pauline's reported, that have given up on Tua Tagovailoa. And it's crazy to think, right? It's crazy to think the guy has not even played a full 16 games, and some of the organization are willing to give up on him. Now, I will say we have heard reports of kind of some off-field stuff with Tua, and nothing bad at all, like nothing criminal, nothing negative, but more so about his personality and not being that kind of like true leader that people would hope the QB would be, right? Not being able to be behind the scenes in a locker room, rally guys together, and be that face of the franchise that people want to gravitate to. So we think that's coming a little bit from there. And then, of course, there's the whole Monday morning QB situation where, you didn't have a chance at Joe Burrow. Stephen Ross, the owner, tried to influence that and say, hey, what can we give to the Bengals to get that? But Justin Herbert was picked right after Tua, right? And so every week that Justin Herbert plays better and better and better, there are people in the organization who wanted Justin Herbert who are now saying, look, we could have had Justin Herbert. Although I will say, I don't think Justin Herbert would have done as well in Miami as
in Miami, right? Situational, right?
The situation is totally different, and so you had that tension. But you also have a head coach who, if you look deeper into his coaching turnover the past 2 years, it is insane. The offensive coordinator, you've had a new one every single year. You have.
I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah,
you have 2 this year. That's insane. And what I said, I held a Twitter Spaces a few weeks ago, and what I was saying is, you got your head coach, right? The CEO of a company. You got your coordinators. They're basically like your chief operating officers, right? If any of us are in any kind of corporate company or any business that has this structure, if you see 3 COOs walking out the door 3 years in a row, like a new one every single year, and then that third year, you have 2 chief operating officers, like that's a huge red flag.
What does that say?
Yeah, when your coordinators are leaving like that. And after year 1, the defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham, left to the Giants. Lateral move, not even promotion. He's had the same DC the past 2 years. But these are big, serious red flags that I don't think enough people talk about. I think people try to brush it aside. Right. And there's the reports of him losing the locker room already, and it's showing on Sundays, I believe.
It's even happening with some players, like one and done deals, like Kyle Van Noy. Yeah. He was happy to get out of there.
In and out, yeah.
Right.
And you would think he, in a sense, you would think this is a guy that's being brought down there because he is a Brian Flores type player, and he is going to be a real presence in that locker room. And for him to be like, I'm glad to be out of there, it almost. Flores talks out of both sides of his mouth. I think you heard some of that. I think I read some of that. What are your thoughts there?
There was a report from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel that said that Flores has been trying to get younger and younger and younger because he doesn't want people pushing back against him. He doesn't like when players speak out against him. And that's part of this whole thing with losing the locker room, right? You try to go younger to get no one to challenge you. And then now you're so young that you don't have the experience to know how to win a football game. And you're right, Dan, like Kyle Van Noy did nothing, in terms of to deserve to be cut after 1 year. He was shocked by it. But Kyle Van Noy was also a guy in the locker room that wasn't afraid to speak his mind.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you see that, then that's when Flores kind of shuts down a little bit.
Which is interesting because you think that they knew what they were getting when they brought Van Noy in to begin with.
Right.
It's not like that should have been a shock.
Right. But is it Flores who wants that, or is it Chris Greer who wants it? Right. And that's what I think everyone's trying to decipher here is what page are they on? And we know in the NFL and other businesses too, once this starts happening, when you're 1 and 2 are fighting for their job, people start getting thrown under the bus. So you can only imagine what Chris Greer is saying to Stephen Ross and what Brian Flores is saying to Stephen Ross, and who has more of their ear and who has the support of others in the organization. But even if Brian Flores, and I had said this too, right? I said, okay, maybe Brian Flores didn't want to. Maybe he wanted Justin Herbert. And now he's telling Stephen Ross, listen, I wanted Herbert and a career pick Tua, and now look what's happening. But even if he said that, right, you can't gloss over the fact of his coaching turnover, so much of it. You can't gloss over the fact of the locker room. And those are two incredibly high red flags. And don't forget, like Jim Caldwell too quit after a week, right? Jim Caldwell quit after a week. And they did a whole offensive coordinator search this past offseason. Nobody wanted the job. And he ends up naming 2 people internally, which is a complete dumpster fire. And maybe there's 3 offensive coordinators. That's what some people are saying now too. It's a bizarre
shadow coordinator
scene in Miami. But it goes back to like them not being on the same page, even with Adam Gase. Half the people in that interview room didn't want Adam Gase, and Stephen Ross overruled the high decision makers.
Right.
So no, we're hiring Adam Gase. It's just a bad
Fantastic. Thing. That's good.
Yeah.
So Matt, going back to what we were talking about earlier, a bit before about the Tua situation and kind of juxtaposed against the Deshaun Watson stuff. Yeah. In your opinion, the contingent that is ready to move on from Tua already, how much of that do you think is influenced by the Deshaun Watson availability situation versus just in and of itself to be dealing with Tua regardless?
Yeah, no, I think Deshaun being available has something to do with it. Dolphins and the Panthers, for that matter, were talking to the Texans before the draft about Deshaun Watson.
Right.
And if these allegations didn't come to the surface, who knows who would have ended up getting him? The Eagles were also looking at him as well. Heavy. And so, these 3 teams with a lot of ammo, the Dolphins had the most heading into the draft because they had 3 first-round picks.
Right.
They could have easily swung that deal. And then the allegations surfaced, and that kind of put that to bed. So I think, one, that availability probably helps a little bit. It's just odd. Even if there's off-field things with Tua in terms of his personality, and it's not anything bad. It's just like a quiet kid maybe, and just kind of wants to keep to himself a little bit and doesn't really care for the spotlight so much that just wants to go about his business. It's just bizarre. Yeah. It's just bizarre. I can't put my finger on the fact of why there's people in the organization who want to move on from him, because his on-field play has not proven that they should move on from him. I mean, if you look at it against stats, he's one of the more efficient QBs in the league. And
he's looked pretty good of late.
And he's playing in such a terrible environment with receivers who can't get separation. Devontae Parker's one of the worst receivers in the league at separation, and so is Preston Williams when he's healthy, right?
And that's the key right there, is when he's healthy. Preston Williams had that knee problem for how long? That's almost becoming arthritic at this point. Yeah. And you got Parker, who can't stay in the field either.
Yeah, and there was one high-profile player on the offensive side of the ball who wanted to quit in training camp and wanted to retire from the NFL for good, and the coaches had to talk him into coming back. And so now you have a player on the offense whose probably heart's not in it, and that's affecting things. And you have a terrible offensive line because the GM didn't make the right picks. And, the odds are completely stacked against Tua, but he still goes out there and he still plays at a very high level. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. There have been, we can talk about this too. There have been at least, we'll focus on some positive. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on this. We've seen some positives from Gesicki. Has been, granted, he's essentially a giant slot wideout at this point, but he's looked good. Waddle, I think, is showing flashes, especially now Tua's back. What do you think about those guys as far as at least having some kind of offensive core maybe to build around, assuming Tua's still there? Yeah,
Gesicki's in a contract year as well, so we have to keep that in mind. And who knows if this administration will be there next year and in the offseason to look at bringing him back. Feels like Gesicki's always been that guy who always think this is the season he's going to break out.
It's been like 3 years now. We thought he was going to, and then you see the flash for a game or two, and then it just didn't really. And I personally never known how much of it was him versus just how he's being used.
2 touchdowns this year, right? Such a big athletic receiver. I think they asked him to block a little too much, and his best role, I think what you saw at Penn State was kind of flexing to the outside of the slot a little bit and being that big body that can create mismatches. I don't necessarily think they've used him the right way. There's a lot of hope because George Godsey was the tight ends coach, and now he's one of the 27 offensive coordinators the Dolphins had this year. And so people thought that, okay, since he's going to be involved in the game planning, that Gesicki's going to be more involved.
Right.
I think he's highly underrated. And if you were to go to somewhere else to a coach who knew how to use him the right way, you'd see an incredible difference. Jalen Waddle, obviously there's a lot of comparisons happening right now because Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts,
Sure.
and so forth. And then you look at the Dolphins, who had an opportunity to stay, I believe it was at 4, who ended up trading with the 49ers, then with the Eagles, then back up and so forth. And, Kyle Pitts, from what we heard before the draft, was number 1 on their board. That was the guy they wanted. There was even talk of them leading up to the draft that day of them trying to get with the Falcons and get to that spot. Right. And then if it wasn't Pitts, it was going to be Jamar Chase. And there's a lot of people in Miami who thought it was going to be Chase because they thought the Bengals were going to go Penei Sewell to get the offensive line help for Joe Burrow. That didn't happen, and went Pitts and went Chase. And then, the Dolphins tried to play it off like Waddle was a guy all along when that was really the case. But he's a good player. He has a lot of separation ability. He's a perfect player for Tua to get into the middle of the field and to then create yards after the catch. But is Jalen Waddle ever going to be Kyle Pitts? I don't know.
He's not. Yeah, and the thing is, he's not even that same type of player anyway. We look at Pitts, we look at Chase, like those guys. Like Waddle's a different body type.
And we know he's not going to be Chase. I mean, Chase
right.
has been doing extraordinary things this year as a rookie. Very comparable to Randy Moss already.
Right.
Interesting. Hey, Matt, draft night, right? You see these quarterbacks getting picked. As a Patriots fan, I'm getting excited at the prospect of Fields. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be awesome. My 2 sons, they're watching the draft with me, and they're looking at me saying, I can't believe we're going to get Justin Fields. We don't. We end up getting Mac Jones. Based on what you've seen so far, 7 games in, what are your thoughts on Mac Jones and how he's playing? And he does seem to be a good fit for the Patriots, but we don't know how much longer Bill Belichick is going to be around. What's your take on Mac Jones so far?
Yeah, I think, let's think about it. If you redid the draft today, where would Mac Jones go? I think he'd go to the 49ers at 3. I agree. Would, right? Because you look at, Trey Lance hasn't really seen the field. He's been injured a bit. Right. And then the 49ers are trying to slowly bring him along. You look at Zach Wilson, complete disaster, right? And maybe he even goes number 2, right, to the Jets. Right. Zach Wilson's been a complete disaster so far. And you look then down the line to, I think Justin Fields was the next QB selected, right, to the Bears. Mm-hmm. And I coming into the draft, I thought Justin Fields, I think a lot of people thought Justin Fields was going to be that guy that would be the best QB of the entire draft, even better than Trevor Lawrence. I do think, I think what you see from Justin Fields right now is not, accurate in terms of what he is going to be. I think you have a really bad head coach in Matt Nagy, and he has.
Imagine that. Yeah. No, it's funny you say this is the topic of conversation.
I don't even know how Nagy's still in there. He should have gotten fired after last season. But you have an offensive system that's not built for Justin Fields at all, right? There's nothing really good for Justin Fields there. And God bless Allen Robinson. That guy's just being wasted away there. And he's such a tremendous wide receiver.
He cannot wait to get this season over with and get out of there.
That's what he said last year with Nick Foles and everyone else, right?
Well, yeah, because they keep the whole franchise situation with him. But that's a whole other
yeah. Mac Jones is that typical, prototypical guy that seems like Bill Belichick likes. Guys are going to stand in the pocket, going to deliver passes. Before the draft, Tony Pauline had mentioned for Mac Jones, right? Patient in the pocket, buys time with the receivers, and displays a tremendous sense and wherewithal of what's happening on the field. Goes through the progressions, distributes the ball to all his targets, and takes a safe underneath outlet if nothing else is available. Who does that sound like, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Hi, Tom. How are you?
Throw the ball underneath, keep the chains moving, and keep moving down the field, right?
Right.
And he's incredibly bright. He's incredibly bright, and he's not nearly the most athletic QB from this draft class. Not nearly as athletic as Fields or Wilson or Lawrence.
Yep.
But he has the smarts. And when you look at a guy like Brady, who's not the most athletic guy, when you look at a guy like Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, they're all extremely smart. And if you're smart enough to be QB in terms of being able to dissect the defenses and really figure out where everything goes, that's going to beat athleticism every single day of the week. I think, for the AFC East, you need to watch out for Mac Jones because once they build around him a little more and get him some good talent on the outside, and we know they tried with Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, and that hasn't really gone as expected in terms of the firepower people thought the Patriots were going to have with those 2 tight ends. I think Mac Jones is going to be a very good QB in this league for a long time.
Cool.
We're
Awesome stuff. Good stuff.
So. All right, man. I think we're running up on time a little bit. So, but yeah, we definitely appreciate you coming on. This has definitely been interesting, giving us some insight here. I know we've got your information running on the bottom there, but if there's anything you want to plug or shout out, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you see it on the bottom, profootballnetwork.com. Follow us on Twitter at PFN365. Follow us on other social media platforms as well. And like I said, if you're listening to this on a Friday, we believe we're releasing the Jets story today if you're listening on Friday. So check us out. If it's not Friday, it's going to be Saturday or Sunday. And it's over 2,000 words right now where we're at with it. And there's some good, juicy stuff in there that you're going to
looking forward to this
all
myself
of those
here.
articles,
I thought maybe you were going to throw us a bone
awesome.
and break it here on the podcast, Matt.
No,
That's all right. That's all right. No, that's all right. We have to work our way there.
Yes.
But no, we appreciate you coming on. We'd love to, obviously love to have you back at some point as well and kind of keep this ball rolling. But
absolutely
appreciate having on, Matt. Thanks a lot for coming.
You got it, guys.
All right, man. Take
Thanks,
care.
Matt.
Thanks. All right. Thanks, Matt. All right, Sundance. We talked a little bit to begin with there, but Pats, they took care of business against the Jets last weekend. How much are we taking away from that?
I'm not sure. I hate to cop out on you with the answer, right? But geez, they put up 50 points. Not easy to do in the NFL for any team. So you have to give some credit there. It was the New York Jets. So, okay, how much does it really count for? Well, it's a win in the win column.
It's a win.
So
it's a win regardless.
And it's a conference win, so we'll take that too.
And you can only play, and this goes back to the argument that has been against the Patriots for years in terms of the division they play. You can only play your schedule. You can only win the games. You have to win the games you're supposed to win. So that's what they did.
So I love that. I'll tell you that coming off that win, I was starting to feel pretty good about our chances this weekend coming up. I have to be honest with you, until I caught a little bit of Tom Curran, Patriots beat writer, who tempered expectations. Excuse me. Listen, the Patriots did exactly what we hoped they would do. They destroyed the Jets. They ran all of their plays on offense. They left no tricks in the bag. Nope. If anything, it's pretty cool that they're pretty much telling openly the entire NFL, we have wide receivers that can throw to the end zone. So you better be prepared for a lateral swing pass one way or the other. Yep. It's not just going to come from Danny Amendola. It's not just going to come from Julian Edelman. We've got certainly Kendrick Bourne who can do it. And now Jacoby Myers, we know what he can do.
Right.
I'm just going to ask a question.
Oh,
is there any chance our friend, numero uno, first round draft pick, N'Keal Harry, is there any chance he maybe could put a pass in the end zone for us?
I'll tell you what. Let's hope if he has that ability, it's for someone else, because that means he got traded. And at this point, I'd be fine with him being moved and seeing him make an attempt on some other uniform. However,
thank you. So let's stop there for a second, right? Let's pause on N'Keal Harry and the Jets game. When did you see N'Keal Harry get into the game against the Jets? When did you see a target for him?
Well, Sundance, I'm going to have to reach back into the far reaches of my memory, maybe pull up a box score and see when that might have happened.
It would have been in the last 3 minutes of the game, the fourth quarter. Yeah. Oh no, within the last 3 minutes of the game that they were actually targeting N'Keal Harry. What does that tell you?
They forgot that they needed to showcase him in this game so they could get him ready for the trade deadline.
Hey, listen, great opportunity for the Pats to add a receiver at the trade deadline. A different type of receiver, maybe a burner. I'm thinking about our friend down in Houston that played for us before,
Brandon Cooks.
A guy like that, that's not going to cost a lot. He would be fantastic. And I hope it comes at the cost of N'Keal Harry getting traded or outright released.
I have a feeling we're going to see. I don't think he is long for this roster one way or the other, whether it's trade for a 7th or 6th round pick, or at some point, if and when they decide they need to make room for a roster spot because there's because of attrition on some other area of need, they need to clear something out and they move on from him. I think that leads into you actually led into kind of another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of if they were to go and trade for a burner or some other type of help on the outside as far as the receivers go. I'd say I'd love to see that. However, at this point, you have to think if they are going to make a splash or some kind of move in general, the need is unfortunately even more so on the other side of the ball at corner. The secondary needs massive help at this point. We lost Jonathan Jones for the season with the shoulder. This is on top of already having moved Gilmore.
McCourty is hurt.
McCourty's banged up. That kid that has trade from the Ravens early in the season is still been out missing weeks with concussion.
Mills is
Mills is Mills.
Mills is Mills.
Right. So when he's and we talked about this before, when he's essentially at best your nickel corner playing safety kind of okay. When he's your starting corner on the outside, you have problems. That's a problem. Especially considering we're now going to be going into LA to take on the Chargers, who have two great wideouts in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Jared Cook's still playing well at tight end down the middle. That Eckler, who is coming out I'd say rolling into the trade deadline. I mean, any help is help. We'll take it. I'm curious to see if they go and get secondary help in some way, even if it's a third, fourth corner, just to boost some depth to cycle guys in, someone who maybe knows the system. That type of move, or they're not overpaying. I don't know. Here's a thought, and just a thought. There is a corner that's actually his contract is actually coming up after the season, so he might not cost a lot. They might be able to reach out and look into. I believe his name is Stephon Gilmore. That might be something they can look into as far as maybe getting him on the cheap on a contract year, depending on what they'd have to give up. But I don't know, just a thought. I don't know. What do you think? What any other areas of need you'd like to see them go after the trade deadline?
No, it's wide receiver or it's defensive back. You hit the nail on the head.
Right.
So there's not much more ground to cover there. I will tell you this. I'm not sure what's going on with the running backs. They've looked pretty good the past 2-3 weeks, right? They've looked pretty good. Stevenson's a healthy scratch last week after playing pretty well the past week or two.
Agreed. I think we thought he was starting to establish himself a little bit as that 1B complement to Harris as far as even just being able to catch the ball a bit out of the backfield. And then he became going into this week, healthy scratch, found out late Sunday morning, healthy scratch.
Yeah.
Brandon Bolden's your guy filling that James White role again this week. And I can't figure out.
I don't get it.
Clearly something's going on with Stevenson behind the scenes in terms of playbook pickup, something that we don't know about.
Yep.
But it seems a little odd that we're jostling these running backs now in these roles behind Harris, and they can't seem to really kind of figure on something. It's a little odd.
You would think by week 6, week 7,
you'd have a handle on that.
You'd have a handle on that, and they don't, and that gives me some concern. The tight ends are coming together. Smith, John, who got banged up again last week, which not a great not a great sign. But Hunter Henry is certainly coming through in the clutch when they need him. So you like to see that. Mack had a fantastic game. Offensive line looked quite a bit better. And of course, he spread the ball around the wide receivers. They all looked pretty good with the exception of N'Keal Harry. Listen, you've got it. I mean, maybe adding another, weapon to the offense through a burner wide out, but clearly defensive back is going to be the big one that they're going to need to attack at the trade deadline.
Which leads you into this game coming up on Sunday again, as we alluded to earlier. will this defense, granted, the Chargers are a far cry from the Jets, will the defense be able to carry over some momentum into this game and at least play this offense? Justin Herbert is a phenom back there behind center as well with his receivers. He's got plenty of toys to work with there. This defense can be able to roll into LA and do anything to try to stop this offense. I question that. I mean, they're going to need a major push from the line up front, and the backers are going to have to play a hell of a lot better than we've seen them play over the course of the season to try to cover up potential deficiencies in the secondary. I don't know if they can pull that off. I don't know. I'd love to see it. I do feel like this team is playing with a little momentum, a little confidence now. Not that according to anyone in the media and Bill and the team, the locker room, that was never an issue before. Confidence was not a problem. But you'd like to see not some just confidence, maybe it's a little bit of swagger. Obviously, a lot of this team remembers taking down the Chargers last year with Herbert behind center, 45-0. I'm sure that means nothing to any of these guys going into this game, but curious to see if the defense can hold up their end of the bargain on the road again this week against a much better offense. And then, like you said too, Mac played well. Can this offense show up again against the Chargers? Chargers have a great pass D, pretty soft against the run. So I'm wondering if this is going to be another Harris game, at least to start, try to establish the run game, both because they know they can and they can get that push up front, even with some backup offensive linemen, and the fact that, they're going to want to set that tone, set that pace to not let Herbert and that offense, run all over them, for 4 quarters. So I'm really curious. What do you think in terms of pace of this game, how they're going to play it, what the chances are? I don't know. This is going to be a tough game, even despite the thrashing of the Jets.
So first things first, as long as Matt Judon, the dude in the red sleeves, makes the team flight, I like our defense to put some pressure on Herbert. Okay.
Being on the field, making the flight, and getting there helps. Yeah, that's the first thing. Just
no. The point I'm making is Judon is awesome. I mean, he is everywhere on the field. Unfortunately, he can't be everywhere all the time,
and doesn't even show up in the stat line all the time. Last week, I think he ended up with all credit with a half of an assist of a tackle, but you watch the game, he's in that backfield the whole missing every play, just disruption.
So you just took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, he's in all seriousness, he's a player that disrupts. And so a guy like that, as long as you have someone like that on your defense, right. He's a Joey Bosa, he's a JJ Watt. Granted, he's not up there with those guys and they don't play the same position, but he is a disruption.
Especially against bad quarterbacks. Like we saw Zach Wilson and White last week. All it takes is a guy threatening to get home, rattles things up, causes turnovers, mistakes, etc. Sometimes that's all you need is to have the feeling of pressure. And
so as long as you've got him on the field, I hate to say I like our chances, but he really makes everyone else better. Now, who else needs to play? Especially, say, the secondary, like we need. Completely, yeah. Right now. I'll tell you someone who comes up in flashes, but hasn't had that banner game yet, and that's the rookie defensive lineman Christian Barmore. He's there on certain plays, and then it's like I haven't seen him for a full quarter or two. I'm just like, what happened to that guy? Where did he go? I don't see him out there at all. So I'd really look for Barmore to maybe have a solid game here. I'm looking for that, quite honestly. On the offensive side, right, you think exactly what you said. The Chargers are terrible at stopping the run. They're pretty good stopping the receiving game, but they're terrible stopping the run. But the Patriots, they just don't really do exactly what you think they're going to do. Here's what I'm saying. I won't be surprised for the Patriots to come out on 1st and 10 and air it out down the sidelines to Kendrick Bourne. They just are so unpredictable. If it were me with the Coach Belichick hat on, I'm running the ball all day. I'm running it on 1st and 2nd down, probably for my first 5 offensive series, just to see if they can stop it. And you hope that they can't, because now you're just going to make a statement of, you can't stop this, and we're going to keep the ball longer than you are. And that's really the only opportunity I see the Patriots for winning this game. They cannot turn the ball over, and they have to run it really well. Like I mean, Harris and Stevenson have to come out of this game with 100 yards rushing.
Again, if Stevenson's even active, I mean, the way it's been going, it's been 50-50. Is going to be Stevenson, is going to be Bolden. JJ Taylor seems like he's active every game. It's just, he's only going to get select touches. I think it would be odd for Stevenson to be inactive 2 weeks in a row, but I think flat out they trust Bolden more, not even necessarily as a pass catcher. They trust him more in pass pro. They trust him to not make mistakes in protection, just to be precise, to know his role. I think the trust is there. Talent aside, I think the trust is there. Saying that out loud now, I actually, with a game like this, they very well may go ahead and just keep Bolden active and Stevenson on the sideline. It's hard to know, but like you said, regardless of who is active and who's pairing up with Harris, they're going to need a 1-2 punch. It can't just be Harris, but they're going to have to keep cycling through those backs, keeping them on their toes, either running straight up at them through the gut, running sweeps, off tackle, a couple of some. One knows they love the screen, so I'm sure we're going to see some screen passes in there as well. Your favorite play. I think that a big thing too is going to be, again, as has been every week, health of the line. Shaq Mason with the, I believe he got banged up in that game again. Who's going to be active?
Been coming together bit by bit
a little bit
over the past few weeks. I'm okay with the offensive line. I really don't have strong concerns there. The concern is what you pointed out earlier. It's going to be the defensive backs. Right. And if Herbert is taking his shots 25, 30 yards up the field here and there, we're in trouble. So we have to get pressure on Herbert. This is not, a 3-man rush, 4-man rush. No, I mean, if I'm young Belichick, the son that gets to call the defensive plays, such nepotism. If I'm him, if I'm Steve Belichick, I'm dialing up different blitzes consistently. I really, and I know you're taking chances there. I know that you're going to leave some guys uncovered, but you can't let Herbert sit back there.
Agree.
Right. He's just going to pick you apart.
And I'd like to think, going back to Judon, and anyone else who can get pressure, I think with Herbert, you're probably not going to have the same effects on that that pressure as you, like we said, you would have with
Pat Patriot.
Pat Patriot.
So let's start getting a little bit more positive, because Pat Patriot on Halloween is going to show up. So tell me the two things, Major J, that are going to push the Patriots to their fourth win in not San Diego, but LA.
Well, you touched on the first one. It's going to be the running game.
Okay. So we're going to run it down their throats. We're going to eat up clock.
Then we're gonna have to disrupt Herbert and make sure that passing game stays at bay. The cover the secondary. So
perfect.
There are 3-4 coming into this game.
I'm gonna text Steve and Bill.
Yeah, just give them a heads up. Let them know what we came up with. Take it for what they will. But
blitz.
It's a big game because you also have another tough road game coming up at Carolina. After the Chargers, then you come home and you've got the Browns, which is another potentially tough game, tough defense. Then things, Falcons, who are playing better lately. That may not be a gimme anymore. I know it doesn't scare you, but they're,
listen, I had a different reaction looking at their schedule coming off this Jets win. And granted, I'm living in Pat Patriot heaven right now, having put 50 up the board. But the schedule doesn't look nearly as daunting as it did 2-3 weeks ago. Really, Cleveland.
Agree.
Does Cleveland?
Right, they're a 4-3 team. I just think they play you tough, though.
They play you tough.
They play you tough. So
they play you tough,
but you're certainly not a loss. You don't look at that and think that's an L. Right.
There you go.
Falcons, even on the road, Falcons is not an L. Like, they should be competitive in these games.
Oh, absolutely. Phil Perry was on, Fox Sports New England tonight, and he said, listen, even if the Patriots lose this game, he can still find 10 wins in their schedule to get them, at the wild card level. And I believe it. I do think they are getting better as we go. As we've said, they've lost 3 games on one single play.
Right.
This team could easily be 6-1 right now. They could be 6-1. So I look at the forward schedule, and I am not discouraged at all. I'm feeling as if we got a shot here. Again, here comes a must-win game on the road. Chargers. This could make a statement, though. This is the type of the game that could send them off.
Let's hope and see. Obviously, we'll have our picks, official picks against the spread for that game a little bit later on. But all right, I think that wraps up our Patriots preview segment for the show. We'll be back and talk about it next week and reflect back on it. I think next we're going to roll into your favorite segment, Sundance, our Fantasy 5. 10. Before we get into 5 names of note, just a bit of a note there. Remember, we are back to a normal bye week this week. This is we were out of bye week Armageddon, bye week again, whatever people want to call it from last week. We only have 2 teams off, just the Ravens and Raiders, so things are settling in to be a little more normal this week as we move forward. All right. Our number 5 player for the week, Pat Freiermuth. It's a Sundance favorite. Tight end from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like most players right now, a lot of people have tight end issues. If you don't have one of the top 3 or 4 studs, I would go and look into adding Pat Freiermuth. He's definitely going to be a beneficiary of the Juju Smith-Schuster injury that knocked him out for the entire season. He's going to start seeing more targets underneath. This is a big receiver that they drafted out of Penn State. He had 7 targets 2 weeks ago before their bye. I think that's going to continue as the season wears on. Not going to win you your league. It's going to be a tough matchup against Cleveland this week, but I think for the duration of the season, he's a good, cheap add to throw in there if you can. All right, number 4. Add Teddy Bridgewater. Again, not a household name, but if you have some quarterback issues, he's someone to look at for the next few weeks. They're coming home mainly because of their schedule. He's been solid enough to this point. Nothing great, but solid enough. They have Washington coming in to Denver this week, which is a terrible secondary. They're going to Dallas the week after. They come home against Philly. Nice little schedule for them. So if you have some bye week issues or have some quarterback issues, injuries, etc., Teddy Bridgewater is not a bad guy to add on the cheap. Number 3, get Kadarius Toney. He is actually 53% owned on Yahoo right now. So, he may be available. He may not. You may have to go and trade for him. Either way, I would look to see what you can do with him there. He might be affordable in a trade. He's coming off a pretty nasty ankle injury. Left first quarter of the game a couple weeks ago, missed last week. Trending possibly to play this week. But this kid's got league-winning talent despite the fact he's got Daniel Jones throwing to him. So if you can add him, great. If you need to trade for him, see if you can get him thrown into a trade or trade for him somewhat cheaply, playing on the fact he's coming off that injured ankle. Even if you can't use him this week, he potentially could be a league winner for down the stretch for you. So Kadarius Toney, number 3, add by any way you can get him. Number 2, Javonte Williams, running back from the Broncos. Pretty much universally owned, so you're going to have to trade for him. But if you can, I would do it. He's a name that's been out there. This is nothing new to anyone who plays fantasy, but if you can get Javonte, I would look to do it, seeing he's still sort of in that timeshare with Melvin Gordon. The thing is, Broncos' schedule really gets nice starting next week in terms of against the run and lasts through the duration of the season. Could start to take snaps away from Gordon. At some point, they're going to want to see what this kid can do. They drafted him high for a reason. I do think this offense is going to start to click a little bit more with Jerry Jeudy coming back. Another reason to go and add Teddy Bridgewater as well. They're getting Jeudy back this week. Bridgewater loved the kid week 1 before he had a high ankle sprain. I think with Jeudy back, offense starts to click a little more. Javonte could be beneficiary as well. So I go and see if you can add him somewhat affordably now while you can. Brings us to our number 1, Sundance.
Whoa.
Deshaun Watson.
Whoa.
Don't do it. And I'm going to reserve this take for single quarterback leagues. If you're in a 2-quarterback league or super flex, this doesn't apply. You're scratching and clawing for whatever you can get at quarterback. If you're in a single quarterback league, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. He still has to get traded because he's never going to play with the Texans if he doesn't get traded. That's established. Still has to get traded. Still has to learn that playbook and that offense. Sure, he's a superstar player. I get it. Could probably step right in. Still, you know what environment he's going into in terms of talent around him.
Yeah.
And I'm still not convinced at this point, despite everything Goodell has even said in the last couple of days, that push comes to shove, when he's faced with a PR issue, that him and the NFL, the league, don't step in and don't do something in terms of his eligibility to play. They're talking the talk at this point. He very well could be eligible. I'm not completely buying that until I actually see it. So at this point, if you're looking to add Watson in a single quarterback league, just save the bench space for an upside running back, a lottery ticket, someone else. It's just not worth the time. You're going to end up dropping him in a week anyway. So that is our Fantasy 5 Sundance.
Good job. That truly was 5 minutes. Well done.
I pride myself on trying to stay in time. But despite the banner, it's not the Patriots Preview. It was the Fantasy 5. So we will roll now into our Week 8 Padres picks. Another fan favorite. But before we can run into our picks for this week, as you know, we need to reflect on picks from last week and where we stand. So, yes, I'm sure you want to see this one. Not week 6, week 7. However, you were 9-4. I was 8-5. Beat me by a game. That now takes you to a 1-game lead in the overall standings at 49-40-1. You've closed that gap. You've taken the lead. Congratulations, Sundance. Good for you. I'm happy to see it. Anyway,
I got lucky on a couple games. I got lucky on a couple games, but as I said, just be over 500.
Right. No, you're right. Be over 500. All right. So let's go ahead. Good for you. I'm happy.
You're doing
all right.
good
That takes
too.
us. Yeah. Well. All right. So it takes us into our picks for the week. I don't know who you took in the Arizona Green Bay game. I had Green Bay getting the 7.
I had Green Bay as well. So
okay. Well,
yeah.
Great. They are currently down 7-0, but driving here the early part of the second quarter. 3rd and 1. Aaron Jones pushes. That's a touchdown. Give that man a touchdown. So it's now 7-6, pending the PAT. All right. Looking great for both of us for now. First game on the Sunday slate, Sundance. We have got Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the aforementioned New York Jets. Cincy is giving 10.5. I'll let you start with this one.
So Cincinnati really turning a corner as a franchise. You've got to feel great if you're a Bengals fan, and you've waited for this. The Jets are just going in the opposite direction. I talked to a good friend of mine in the office today. He's a big Jets fan. And the last question I asked him, I said, so how are you feeling about Salah? And his response said it all. And he said, I don't know, and that's it. I mean,
you don't have to say, I don't know, just that's it.
This is not a great sign for Salah. He's obviously going to survive the season. They could go, 2-15. Salah's going to be back next year. But boy, that pressure gets really heavy for him next year. I like the Bengals in this game. They look really good, and I'm not sure. Matt White, is that the backup quarterback?
Yes.
I believe it's Matt White. He didn't impress me much.
Matt White, Mitch White, something White. Yeah, it probably doesn't matter.
Good. So let's take Cincinnati. I think they win this one, quite honestly, by 20.
All right. For same reasons, two teams going in opposite directions. Big number, but I think even on the road, I'm going to take the Bengals as well. All right, so that takes us into our next game, which is Tennessee heading to Indianapolis in a divisional game. That should be an interesting game for AFC South implications. Indianapolis giving the 2.5. This one, I'm going to go ahead and take Indy, both teams are playing well. We've seen the Titans win at home, like we said before, against Kansas City and Buffalo. Indy's on the upswing as well. I think both these teams are just playing well enough. This could be a smashing game. I just like Indy for simply tiebreaker. They're at home. I think they go in by a field goal.
Yeah, I'm not going to go against you on this one. I will say this. Geez, watching the Colts this past Sunday, you forget how good Carson Wentz can be. I mean, even in terrible, crappy conditions, he looks pretty good.
He is healed from the full Wentz. He is healed from the full Wentz, moving around on both ankles.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Frank Reich knows what he's doing. I don't like this game for Tennessee. I'm taking the Colts too.
All right. Next on the schedule is Miami, another AFC East game. Miami going to Buffalo. Buffalo giving 14. Sundance. What do you think?
Okay, so this is going to be one of those anomaly games. This is one where you say, Buffalo by 27. Again, these are two franchises going in different directions. I just can't believe Brian Flores goes up to Buffalo and gets the ever-loving crap kicked out of him. I think he is playing for his job. This does not look good. I expect Miami to I'm not going to say play well. I expect Miami to be in this game. I'm going to take the Dolphins.
All right. I as well. I'm taking Miami for the same reasons. Miami played a little better last week despite the loss, losing it in the end to Atlanta, but played better last week. I just don't see them getting blown out twice in the same season by the same team, Buffalo. I think they can play at least within the 14. So I'm going to take Miami with the points as well.
There you go.
All right. Next up, we've got the Rams. Another dreaded Houston game. The Rams heading to Houston, take on the Texans. The Rams, even on the road, are giving 14.5. I got away with it last week. I'm going to do it again. I'm taking the Rams giving the big number at this point simply because you never take the Texans, and that's it. So Rams giving the 14.5.
Houston's a dumpster fire. I'm not going against you on this one. I'm going to take the Rams as well.
All right. Easy enough. All right, next up, we got the Eagles going to Detroit. This is an interesting game. Philly giving 3.5 Sundance. What do you think?
This game's in Detroit.
Correct.
I thought Detroit played pretty well last week. They showed a little moxie. The Eagles they're up and down. You want to believe in them and Jalen Hurts. I don't, not yet. I thought they were building something, but they keep on, fooled you. No. I'm going to take Detroit in this one.
All right, so you and I in lockstep again. I'm taking Detroit for no other reason. I think they're still playing hard for Campbell, and I just don't trust Philly. They don't trust them. I didn't like what I saw against the Raiders. This is actually made my upset special. I'm at some point Detroit is going to win a game. They're not going winless this season. It's not going to happen.
Agreed.
This could be the game. I saw going back to the Ravens game. They made the Ravens, who are regarded as a good team, look not so great in Detroit a few weeks back. I think this is that type of game. Only this one they'll get the win. So I'm definitely gonna take Detroit with the points. Upset special. Next, another 1:00 game. Pittsburgh going to Cleveland. Another AFC North, just smash them game. Cleveland giving 3.5. This one I had a tough time with, honestly, but I ended up I'm taking Pittsburgh, getting the 3.5. We spoke about it a little bit earlier with Cleveland. I'm just not, Baker's got the shoulder. They're missing Kareem Hunt. Things are, Beckham isn't exactly playing well. Something's just not clicking for the Browns. I think they could win this game, but I definitely think Pittsburgh coming off a bye, getting 3.5. I'm going to take the points there.
I'm going to tell you something. I saw a power ranking this week that had Pittsburgh at 15, 3 spots ahead of the Patriots. Pittsburgh is not that good. I'm sorry. Pittsburgh is going down.
Ben's noodle arm is not doing that team any favors right now.
No,
they've already lost Juju for the year. Yeah,
the Steelers are at home in this one, right?
No, this is in Cleveland. This is in Cleveland.
Oh God,
Yeah.
even more reason. No, I'm taking Cleveland. Even if it were in Pittsburgh, I'm taking Cleveland.
Okay.
I don't like what the Steelers are looking and playing like right now.
So, what are you trying to say?
So next to the 1 o'clock slate, we've got San Francisco traveling to Chicago. 49ers are giving 4. What do you think here?
This is a tough game. I don't think Fields is as bad as he's shown, and I feel like I've been unfair to Matt Nagy at times.
No, it's okay. You've been fair. No, don't beat yourself up on that. No.
I was disappointed in the 49ers this past week. On this one, I am not going to take the 49ers. I will take the other team.
The Chicago Bears. It's all together now.
I'm going to take the Bears. Upset.
Bears.
Upset pick. Bears.
That's your upset special. Fantastic.
Bears.
I am actually taking the Niners. I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't necessarily like what I've seen from them per se to this point, but I don't think he's bad per se, but I do have major questions about Fields' development right now. If for no other reason, being a byproduct of his surroundings in that coaching staff, he looked, I don't know if you saw it, but towards the end of that game last week, after his third pick, the kid's sitting there dejected, not knowing what to do,
terrible.
Alone. Not only did he look
bad look.
The thing is a reflection of the coaching staff. You didn't have Nagy or any coordinator, anyone over there talking to him. They just left him alone. You sit there, little boy, and just deal with it yourself and pout, and you're going to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and figure it out. Okay, sure that kid's going to do it. Give me a break. Terrible coaching staff. I have no qualms about talking crap about Matt Nagy. Terrible coach.
That's terrible.
So this kid gets no support, no Khalil Mack as far as pressure on the outside. Defense is still decent enough without him, but I think it's going to be enough where I think San Fran could come in and take this game by a field goal. So I'll take San Fran, give him the 4. That's enough of that game. Next 1 o'clock game, Carolina going to Atlanta. So nice NFC South duel. Atlanta giving the 3 on this. I'm going to take Atlanta giving the 3. These teams are actually feel like they're going in opposite directions. I don't necessarily think the Falcons are ascending per se, but they've shown life. I've liked what I've seen as far as just simply being competitive and showing a little more than they did early on. So I think some of that carries over after that big win on the road last week against Miami. I think that momentum carries in here. Carolina's still struggling a bit. I'm going to go ahead and take the Falcons -3.
Yeah, all good points. If I won tickets to an NFL game, this would probably be the last one that I'd want to win tickets to. What a crap game.
You'd give them to me at that point, which I'd appreciate. And I'd ask you if you wanted to come with me. So it works out.
I would go.
Sundance, you want to go to Atlanta?
So listen, you bring up a lot of really good points. Carolina trending down. Hot Atlanta, maybe not hot, but they're playing better.
Definitely lukewarm.
Lukewarm. For all those reasons, I'm going to take Carolina.
Okay, confused. But you got me. All
Let's
right,
go, Sam Darnold. Let's go. It's time to show up.
His coach is thinking the same thing. All right, so the first 4 o'clock game. This is our big one here. New England going to LA. LA giving the 4. Sundance. Where does the gavel land on this? Come on.
Easy pick. I'm going to go Patriots. Do you want to say upset? No, because I'm going to call the upset for the other game that I mentioned. I like the Patriots to win here. This is going to be their statement game. This is going to be the game. Here we go. I mean, there have just been games that they've lost on one play. One. Not those 2 or 3 plays.
They've lost these games on a N'Keal Harry. Yes.
Every single loss except to the Saints has been one play. So yeah, I'm going to take my beloved Patriots. Pat Patriot on Halloween is going to show up and show out. Let's go.
Spooky. All right. So for me, this is going to be a pick with your head, not your heart game. I'm taking the Chargers -4 as much as I hate to do it. I simply just don't think don't think the Pats secondary can handle this offense. I don't. I think they can keep this close. I'd love to be wrong on this, despite the fact that I have to make up a game in the standings on you. But realistically, I can't look at this game and think the Patriots can cover this. I think they're going to lose by a touchdown minimum. I just think Chargers offense, Herbert, those weapons. I just don't. I personally just don't see it. But I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Next game on the 4:00 slate, Sundance, we got the Jags, Jacksonville, going to Seattle. Seattle is giving the 3.5 after coming up just short last week in the primetime game Monday night against New Orleans, losing 13-10. They're now giving the 3.5. I'll lead off with this one. I am going to take Seattle despite the Geno Smith experience. Despite my better judgment in every way, I'm going to take Seattle and think everything else about that team will be good enough. Simply because I just don't take Jacksonville on the road. Like, I'm glad they got a win. Hooray. But let's be real. It's still Jacksonville. It's still the Urban Meyer dumpster fire. I like what I've seen out of Trevor Lawrence, but
still the what? It's
the
still
Urban Meyer dumpster fire.
Love it.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. But, so I think despite all that, there's no way in HE double hockey, in honor of the Halloween season, there's no chance in HE double hockey sticks am I taking the Jacksonville Jaguars cross-country West Coast game, getting 3.5 in Seattle. Not happening.
Just 3.5.
Just 3.5. Yeah. So Seattle, absolutely taking Seattle here as they roll into their bye.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's not much more to say on this game. Seattle doesn't look very good, but I'm not picking Jacksonville if you paid me. So, nope, I'm Seattle on this one.
Well, seeing as Aquafina has not gotten back to us, nobody's paying us for any of these segments. So, next stop on the slate here, we've got the Tampa Bay Bucks, Tom Brady and company heading to New Orleans for another NFC South banger. The Bucks giving 4.5 in New Orleans. What do you think here?
I'm not sure. I want to give Peyton credit for putting New Orleans really in a pretty decent spot as we approach the midpoint of the season.
Great. Good. He's doing a great coaching job, I would agree.
He is 110%. Brady and Arians, man, they love to run up the score. I mean, they love to score points, period.
They like to have fun.
They don't mind running up the score.
That's why Brady knew what he was doing when he went to Tampa. He just wanted to have some fun. He's having fun.
Ever. I'm going to go. I really think this is going to be a close game, and I won't be surprised if New Orleans upsets Tampa, but I'm going to take Tampa.
Okay. I as well. I'm taking Tampa. I'm going to keep taking Tampa to cover until I'm convinced not to at this point for the reasons you just stated. So I just don't know if New Orleans and Jameis can keep up with Brady and company here. So we'll go ahead and take Tampa, give them the 4.5 here. Next game, 4:25 start for Washington going to Denver. Spoke about this a little bit in the Fantasy 5 with Bridgewater, etc. Denver giving the 3.5. I'm going to take Denver, giving the 3.5 here. I think they get right at home a little bit. The offense, again, they're getting Judy back. Offense is going to start to click a little bit. Washington just has too many issues, especially on the back end of the secondary. I think Denver can take care of business here and cover the number.
Who's playing quarterback for Washington right now? Is that Heineke still?
Still Heineke. At this point, Fitzgerald's not looking. It's not looking good for him to come back anytime soon with his hip.
Yeah, I'll take Denver.
All right, easy enough. Next up is Dallas taking on Minnesota in the Sunday night game. Dallas going to Minnesota, coming off the bye. This one's interesting to me. Minnesota at home. I believe both teams coming off their byes. Minnesota giving 2.5. I'm going to guess this is partially because of the trepidation or question mark as far as whether Dak's going to play on the ankle. That's been kind of up in the air, even though Jerry has said, Dr. Jerry, as he's affectionately known as, it said that Dak is going to play. We'll see. This is a tough one. I'm going to let you take this one first.
I didn't know about Dak and a potential ankle injury.
He injured it. Remember, he injured it 2 weeks ago in the Pats game on that final play at some point that touchdown pass, he had a little bit of limp coming off the ramp. And they've been kind of talking about that, and they poo-pooed it because they had the bye and no big deal. You know what? I'll be fine coming out of the bye, just a little wrench or whatever. But still being talked about. No one's really giving any information. He very well could be fine for all we know, and no one really knows because he's being hidden in practice, etc. But as of now, that question mark is there, and I'm guessing that's why the line is what it is.
Okay. I think Minnesota is a decent football team. I don't think they're great. They're not terrible.
Right.
Dallas came to New England and nearly lost. I'm going to actually take Minnesota here.
Okay. I'm actually going to take Dallas getting the points. I think it's the way this team is starting to roll. Coming off their bye, I'm going with the assumption Dak is okay and is going to play. If taking that as an assumption, this Dallas team is ascending on both sides of the ball. Minnesota, a good team, like you said. They're at home. I don't think they're good enough to take down Dallas. So I would take it as my upside special. I do think Dallas wins the game. I saved that for Detroit, though, but I definitely will take Dallas with the points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that rolls us into the final game of the slate, Monday night. Oh, boy, everyone's favorite topic, the Kansas City Chiefs. You've got the Giants going into Arrowhead, Chiefs giving 9 points. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to do it again, despite my better judgment. I'm going to take the Chiefs laying the 9 here and say this game has to be the game the Chiefs get right and they figure it out because it's the Giants. If you can't take down the Giants by double digits, I don't know. I think your season's lost. I'm going to think this is the game where the Chiefs go out and potentially win 45-13. But that's just me. The Giants have too many personnel issues, potentially still tons of guys banged up on offense, etc. Oh, and Daniel Jones. That's it. Need I say more? What do you think?
What's the spread on this one again?
Chiefs are giving 9.
Not enough. I'm with you. If it weren't a Monday Night Football game, I know that sounds odd, but if it weren't a Monday Night Football game, I might feel differently. But the spotlight is going to be bright, and I do expect the Chiefs to show up and play well.
Yeah, I just I get what you're saying. I just I just don't see the Giants.
No faith in the Giants. Sorry.
None at all. All right, so that concludes our Padres picks for Week 8. We'll see what that how that shakes out. If anyone makes it, if I make an headway on you, if you widen that gap a little more, we've been neck and neck for every week, so we'll see what happens. All right. So that leads us into this week's top 5. This is going to be another fun one. I'm actually really looking forward to this one. Our top 5 worst trick-or-treat handouts. So this is a very wide umbrella wide net that we're casting here as far as what qualifies. Just the worst anything that leaves somebody's hand through the door or window and ends up in your trick-or-treat bag. So Sundance, I'm gonna let you lead off with your number 5 here. What do you got?
Okay, my number 5 is one of the all-time horrendous candy bars on the market, still being mass-produced right now as we speak. But it's the candy bar as a kid that you couldn't eat too many of them or you got a sore throat within about 40 seconds. And I'm talking about Three Musketeers. That's just way too much chocolate, nougat, chocolate, sugar, nothing in there to break it up, no type of nut, no almond, no peanuts, not even throw me a bone, give me a walnut or I'll take a pistachio, throw it in there, but you got no kind of nuts in there to break it up. And it is just how anyone can eat a Three Musketeers without a full liter of water or a gallon of milk is beyond me. Even the little tiny snack size crappy ones that they would give out at Halloween. I mean, I was trading those off the first chance I got. And when I saw that silver wrapper with the red and blue. I was like, this is crap. I'm going to trade you, Josh. I'll take your good and plenties. You can have 7 of my 3 Musketeers all day, every day. Number 5 is 3 Musketeers.
Okay, so that one, I don't disagree with everything you said there. It did not make I went about 14 deep on mine.
Wow.
It did not make my 14. I actually don't mind 3 Musketeers, but I get what you're saying. So, all right, my number 5, it's actually not even edible. This is one that actually could even go higher on my list, but I saved it. And just as a PSA to you and everyone else who might be watching, listening,
thank you.
The more I went through this exercise, the more feelings of anger I started to experience as time went on, because I realized, hearkening back to my experiences and even my kids' experiences, how much somebody's really bothered me. So it might show through a little bit. This is one of them. Number 5 is those damn red wax lips that they throw in there.
Oh,
and usually it would come accompanied with the Dracula teeth, which I'm fine with, because at least those are festive. At least I can go around and pretend to be a vampire, which is, you could attribute it. That's tied into Halloween. A wax lips. Like, what am I? Am I a Rolling Stones fan? I don't understand what those have to do with anything. They had the little tab, so you could barely even bite down and keep them on before they fall off. Okay, so this goes out to anyone who even thinks about putting that in a kid's trick-or-treat bag. If you're thinking about it, take them out, put them on your own face, and kiss my ass with them, because you cannot do that with someone. You cannot give somebody wax freaking lips. So wax lips, number 5, worst trick-or-treat handout in Halloween. All right, number 4. This one I'm going to guess is probably somewhere on your list. This may be one we double up on. That's fine. I don't care. It's simple. It's a simple apple. I appreciate the effort. I do. I appreciate the effort to help promote healthy eating habits with today's youth, especially Halloween, generally an unhealthy event, given all the candy. I get it. That's cool. But to anyone who's giving an apple to myself or the kids, let myself or the parents deal with the healthy aspect. That's our job. Don't be that guy or gal.
It's almost anti-Halloween.
It absolutely is anti-Halloween. I mean, you're basically being a Halloween communist.
Yeah, it's
keep
kind of
your
like
apple.
an FU to the whole holiday. Like,
I mean, I'll take even Sundance will take the 3 Musketeers before they take your apple. Okay, I can get apples at the local grocery. All right, there are no supply chain issues with apples. Believe it or not, no problem. I'll get my own apple. Apple number 4, worst Halloween trick-or-treat handout. What's your number 4, Sundance?
Glad to know that this whole supply chain issue across the country.
It doesn't extend to produce like that. Mass-produced produce. I've got apples growing in my back door. I mean, they're growing in my pool. You can get apples.
My number 4 was pennies. There is nothing like the sound of 17 pennies hitting the bottom of your pillowcase with a bunch of candy in there. You're almost thinking to yourself, do I take the time to dig out these 17 pennies and throw them back at this house when I get down the driveway? It's rude. It's condescending. It's not even like $50, like the old JFK $50. Remember those? Those might have even been a whole dollar, actually. It's not quarters. I mean, quarters. You were getting good stuff at the gumball machines when you had quarters. Dimes add up. I'm good with dimes. Nickels look bigger than dimes, so as a kid, you're stupid. You don't realize it. You're pretty good with nickels. But a penny is so demeaning and insulting.
You're going to give me the form of currency that the government has talked about getting rid of for how many years now? So you figure that's a cue. I'm going to get rid of my pennies too. Here you go. Thanks, pal. Yeah.
Terrible. Number 4.
Don't mind me as you're getting the bird as I walk away from your house.
That's my number 4. Pennies.
Pennies, number 4. I like it. I love that one. Sundance, what's your number 3?
Timely that I take a sip as I need it. My number 3.
Is it Bigelow tea?
No, this is a different brand. It's an Old English tea, as a matter of fact. I support the colonists. I support the revolution. I do not support the redcoats. I digress. My number 3 is pretzels. Those little purple and black bags of pretzels. Again, you can see where Aquafina and Poland Springs really made their mark around the Halloween season growing up. They were just like, these stupid kids are going to be gasping for air. They're going to need some water. There is nothing worse than pretzels. They're dry. They're boring. There's a reason why it's really the only food served in bars in 1982. It's because they're cheap and gross. It just made you thirsty. My number 3, pretzels.
Yeah, and like you say, it's also insulting and condescending how they think because they jazz it up in the festive packaging that you're going to dig that. Oh, look, it's special Halloween pretzels. No, they still suck. All right. My number 3. This I'm going a little more traditional in terms of the candy edible route here, but it's actually going to be Good and Plenty's. Good and Plenty.
Oh.
I'm going to tell you, the marketing department for Good and Plenty, they got it half right. Because there's always plenty in that box. Because that box, unlike most other candy boxes, let's say Mike and Ike's or any of these other boxes, you could shake them around. You hear them rustling around because it's 3/4 full of air. The Good and Plenty's, they suck. So they pack that box full. So they're bursting out when you open it up. They're not good. They're basically black licorice with coating. You know what? Even the plant that manufactures them and makes them, they're stuffing these boxes full of Good and Plenty's just to get them out of the plant because they can't stand them either. They're god awful. I don't know how they're still around. Good and Plenty, number 3. All right, so you can see it's eliciting anger, and I can feel it bubbling. So it's going to take me, unfortunately, it's my number 2, which is actually going to set me up even more off the deep end.
I love Good and Plenty, by the way.
Do you?
But keep going. I do. I love Good and Plenty.
Such a little rascal.
I hope you were insulted. You can follow this one under the Invasion of the Body Snatchers file like last week. So, number 2, you know what? It has its place. It's an American icon in itself. We all know it. We grew up with it. It's just not appropriate for Halloween. It usually comes fittingly at one of the last houses on your or the kids' route towards the end as you're winding down. This will usually be the house where you get this from. You walk up, they take it, they drop it in the bag, crushing, kind of like the pennies but worse, crushing everything you had in there, and you walk away saying, hey, thanks, I didn't really want those Smarties anyway. It's a can of Campbell's freaking soup. God help me. The people that think this is cool and funny or unique or whatever, soup at Halloween, really, get the hell out of here. That's it. Like, you are just like, they just plop it in there. It ruins your bag. It's no one's going to eat it. Like, it turns around and goes back to the food drive the next day at school. So Campbell's soup, usually chicken noodle. Also, great for if you're sick, but they just assume these kids are going to be sick because they're walking around in the rain or the cold or whatever and trick-or-treating, and you're helping them out. You're not helping anybody. Keep your damn soup. Campbell's soup, number 2. Sundance, what's your number 2?
Wow, I don't think I ever got a can of Campbell's soup.
Well, good for you.
I'm trying to think what I did get, in terms of staples that people were just really getting rid of. Just turn the lights off and lock the door. And
just don't participate. Just don't be there. I can see your TV through the window, but I get the hint. We'll move on to the next house. I respect that you didn't bother buying something of note. Cool. Don't give me what's left over in your cupboard.
Right. So my number 2 kind of comes out sometimes at Christmas in the stocking, but it had its time at Halloween as well. I am talking about good old-fashioned popcorn balls.
Okay.
Yeah, the popcorn balls.
Yeah. All right.
Crunchy. Could break a tooth on them.
Yeah, because they're stale at that point. Right?
They're stale.
And they've been glued together with something that's probably not
stale.
good or edible for you.
They are stale right out of the factory.
Right.
It wasn't even one of those Halloween cast-off candies or treats that you could put aside, a few days after Halloween when mom was making a really crappy dinner and you were just like, I'm not eating dinner tonight. I'll just eat my Halloween candy. You looked at the popcorn ball and
saw it, rolled it to the side, and moved on to your bit of honey. I'd rather eat Necco Wafers, which is also didn't make my top 5 in the top 10. Bit of a hint there.
Number 2, popcorn balls.
Popcorn ball. That actually made number 11 on my list. And going back to the pretzels earlier, that was actually number 7. So that was close. All right. That brings us to your number 1.
My
number 1 worst Halloween trick-or-treat candy handout Sundance. What do you got? Make it good. This one's got to count.
So you stole my thunder earlier. It is the apple. For all of the reasons that you mentioned, it is my number 1.
Cycle back. Let's go through them again because they're valid and warranted. And it needs to be put out in the universe. Yes.
Treat. It's not a candy. It's not even masquerading as a candy. Yet it is edible. So part of you as a kid feels badly throwing it away. At the same time, it has good volume. It has good weight to it. And so it's one of those things that you pick out of your pillowcase on your way home from trick-or-treating, and you just chuck it as far as you can in the opposite direction. My number 1, apples.
Yeah, I can't argue with that one. All right, so my number 1, and I'm realizing as I'm going through these now in the moment that a lot of these terrible, terrible gifts that were bestowed upon myself apparently as a child is indicative of the types of Halloweens I had, and that maybe I should have just moved to a new neighborhood. So my number 1, and I'm going to go out and say you have not experienced this, otherwise it probably would have shown up in your top 5. I have more than once, and it really, really set me off and sets me off thinking about it now. So again, PSA, I'm flat out going to say I'm off the deep end with this one. What the is wrong with you people who are out there giving books of coupons to children on Halloween? Okay, it's Halloween. Don't be an asshole. Okay, I can tell you on more than one occasion as a child, I would go, not in the same house. You walk up and they throw this book of coupons in there thinking they're doing you a favor. Usually McDonald's, right? Usually McDonald's, because this is back in the day.
Sometimes Friendlies.
Friendlies as well. And this is back in the day before McDonald's had their numbered meals, like the number 1, the number 2, and they just had like the Big Mac, the fry, medium fountain drink for $4. You get like that coupon, the quarter pounder meal for $4.50, whatever. You get those coupons. Hey, that's great. But guess what? This does nothing for me right now. I'm hungry now, you fuck. So, number 1, book of coupons. Keep that shit to yourself. Don't ever give it out to kids. You're asking to get TP'd or egged in your house. That's it. All right. So I may have gone a little off the deep end like I figured with that one, but I really, again, elicits strong feelings of anger when I realize some of the stuff that I got as a kid and I've seen my kids get. All right, so that wraps up our show. So next week, what we alluded to earlier, we aiming to have maybe a Sox season wrap up. We kind of reflect a little bit on the year going into the off season. We're going to start some Celtics, Bruins coverage potentially next week as well.
Yep.
We're going to talk a little more Pats coming off this game against the Chargers.
A lot more.
We'll see which way that goes, right? And they're going to be going into a game with Carolina the week after, so there's going to be a lot to talk about there. Another fantasy segment, some more NFL picks. And next week, I think the plan is, as of now, without another audible, we're going to go top 5 90s rap hip-hop tracks, which is going to be all over the place. So that said, before we take off, again, anyone watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, turn notifications on so you never miss a show. If you're listening to the audio, please rate and review. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Sundance 2, right? Not Peace 2. Number 2, Padres Pod. We're also on Facebook, Dos Padres Podcast. Find us, hit us up there. Again, as we always say, it's part of our world takeover. We just want you to come along for the ride. I'm Major J. That guy right there. Sundance Kid.
Field goal is good. Nick Folk, the New England Patriots take down the Chargers.
Let's hope. We're the Dos Padres. Hasta tus sueños. We